Harold Reynolds, Major League Baseball Network analyst, part of MLB's extensive trade deadline coverage today. A special MLB Tonight edition beginning at 1 Eastern. And Harold Reynolds back on the program. HR, how are you?
DP, on trade deadline we break news. So I wouldn't be a real journalist if I didn't say, what are you going to do with Jeopardy? You taking the job?
It's a good question, Harold, and I'll provide an answer for you when you're done with this interview.
All right, sounds good to me. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. We get to these trade deadlines, we talk a big deal, and then rarely do we have big deals. Now you have Bryce Harper, who at least is there for the taking. I don't know what it's going to take, but what's the likelihood that he's moved by the Nationals today?
It's pretty high. We just stepped out of our production meeting, and it seems to me most of our insiders and our former GM, Dan O'Dowd, really feel like it's going to happen. They think it's going to happen. I look at it this way from my perspective. I don't see the Nationals signing him back.
Okay.
I don't know if they're going to catch the Phillies or the Braves this year. I'm making the trade. I got to get something back for Bryce Harper. I think you can do pretty good with this. And you got a number of teams that are calling and inquiring. So I think it might happen.
Okay, what's it going to take to get Harper, and who has that to give up?
Well, you're going to take – obviously somebody's going to want some young, controllable prospects. That's what everybody looks for. I look at the lineup. I think if you put him in Colorado and you gave up a couple pitchers from Colorado and you put Bryce Harper in that lineup, he hasn't really had a lineup around him. I was saying in our meeting this morning, I think he can go off like a J.D. Martinez did last year and propel a lineup. But we had a list of teams. I'm doing something on it now, but we were talking about the Dodgers. The Indians was a real strong possibility, him going to Cleveland, being in that lineup. And here was the big thing about Cleveland is they're playing for the World Series now. That's it. This window's going to close pretty soon on them. And so you take that run right now. They've got everything they need except that bat in the middle. And Harper could be that guy that really takes that lineup to another level because they're going to win their division. They're not worried about that. They're playing for a World Series.
What happened in Washington? Where did the Nats go wrong?
You know what? I would have loved to seen Dusty come back. I think they've been so close. Bryce Harper, looking at his career, he's played for 5 managers in 8 years.
Oh, boy.
That's tough to get the cohesive unit going. And I felt like with Dusty, they were at that point where they turned a corner. Players are starting to buy into what he was doing, and they might have continued on. They love Dave Martinez. They do. They just had a tough year. Again, it's been the health issues that always hit the pitching staff or whatever, but it just hasn't flowed. But I think Dusty had them going in the right direction.
Yeah, I don't know if the Nationals have done this or can do it or will do this, where you just say to Bryce, look, we have 2 teams. We have some good offers for you. They're going to give us prospects. We want to build around you. But if you don't want to be, just say the word, and we will not make this deal. We'll have an agreement that we're going to continue to build around you. Have they done it? Will they do it? Can they do that?
Well, I think they're not. It's not going to happen because Bryce is going to test the free agent market, and I think any team that gets him right now knows he's going to test the free agent market. I think the difference with Harper and Machado, I really think the Dodgers feel like they got a chance to be one of the teams that locks Machado up.
Yeah.
So by getting him in the fold, letting him see the team, how it's ran, everything, they feel like they can do a long-term deal with him. Whoever gets Bryce right now, I don't think that's the feeling. And I think with the Nationals, I think they're realizing their window may not be there to lock him up right now either, without him at least testing the market to see where it's going to push the money.
What kind of money are we talking about for Bryce Harper?
It's crazy. Last year we were talking about $450 million.
Yeah.
That was the market.
Is it
I've
still
heard
there?
Numbers. I don't know if the batting average has hurt him. It's what everybody else looks at differently now. It's hard to understand what people look at. Some people look at, well, he hit 35 balls hard off his bat, so that counts. And that's what they're looking at. He had exit velocity. Hey, in home run derby, he hit 15 home runs over 450 feet. Some people look at that. Other people are looking at the batting average saying it might have cost him. I still think he's got probably the biggest appeal and markability of any player. There's just a magnet thing to him that gravitates fans to him, whether you love him or you hate him, and that's good TV, and that's a good draw. So he's going to get paid for that, I think, in itself. And he's 26 years old, so I think he's going to get that. The only twist I think might happen is you may see he might be the first $40 million a year.
Yeah.
Somebody might say, hey, we'll give you $40 million for 5 years. You don't know. So it'll be interesting to see exactly what the number ends up. But I think we're going to be somewhere from $300 to $450 million.
Talking to Harold Reynolds, Major League Baseball Network analyst. Yeah, I had said 2 years ago he's probably going to be a $400 million player if you get somebody to give him a 10-year deal that's going to average $40 million. I said that I would give him 5 years at $40 million if depending on what city I'm in, and that, am I ready to win? I don't know if Colorado can afford that. I don't know if they want to pay somebody that kind of money. I don't know if fans will come out to see, so you get the return on your investment. How would you, if you were looking at from Colorado's perspective, how could they get that money back on their investment?
Colorado, well, because he's going to hit 80 home runs a year in that ballpark. I mean, he just is. I think that's what they would have to sell it to. The challenge, I think, for the Rockies, and for any team for that matter, is Bryce is going to want to win. And he's going to have that opportunity, I think, to pick the club to go to. He may take less money to be in an organization that he knows the future we're going to win. He's at that point now in his career, and money is going to be so great that he's taking care of his kids already. So I think winning is going to be the big thing. And the challenge for Colorado, for me, is pitching. How are you going to pitch and be competitive in that ballpark year in, year out?
I also thought, a sidebar with this, the trade deadline, Roberto Osuna, who was traded to the Astros, but he's suspended right now, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. How can you trade somebody who's been suspended?
Boy, Dan, you must have been listening to me talk in our meeting. I thought that was the one thing I didn't like about the deal either. I just felt like the Blue Jays should not be able to benefit with a player who's suspended. They get back a player who can pitch tonight in Giles if they want, and whatever else they got. So I think that's it reminds me of a few years ago when somebody would get suspended for PEDs and be eligible for the postseason.
Yeah.
And the commissioner made the adjustment, and no longer were you allowed to play. I think we'll see an adjustment on this rule as well. The challenge will be how do they come about it, and what will it be? We're going to discuss this on the show because we had a split camp across the board in our meeting with Dan O'Dowd, Tom Verducci, myself, Greg Amsinger. Everybody had different opinions. So we're going to dive into it, but I'm in your camp. I was sitting there going, how does that work? I don't think it's right. And it sounds like you're saying that.
Well, you can't trade a player who's injured. It's like if the Lakers were thinking of trading Lonzo Ball to San Antonio as part of, the Kawhi Leonard deal, then he quickly announced that he needed knee surgery, that the Lakers couldn't trade him. So I don't know what the difference is of somebody who's injured and somebody who's suspended. It feels like if you're injured and you want to trade for somebody, I would be okay with that as opposed to somebody suspended for domestic violence and you could still get rid of them.
Yeah, I think this is one that's going to get worked out in the end. I still think we're in the beginning stages of figuring all this out. And, it's a new policy, and I think they've got the right policy in place, and I think they'll make the adjustment. That's really the only answer I got. I can't think of anything else because we haven't come across this. Yeah. This is the first case of it.
And the Astros say they have a zero-tolerance policy, but they bring this guy in. And you've already won a World Series, so that there's not pressure on you to, like the Cubs brought in Chapman, and he had domestic violence. They had never won, so they took a chance. And I don't think any Cub fan is, going to say, yeah, we won, but, we had this guy who was accused of domestic violence or whatever, with Chapman. Why bring in Osuna? I don't care how good. Like, there's nobody else out there that you could have said, hey, can we get somebody not accused of domestic violence here? Maybe he's not as good a pitcher as Osuna, but I don't know, kind of strange. I didn't understand that from the Astros' perspective.
Well, yeah, they should have came out and just said, my job is to win games. He's 23 years old. We like his stuff. We feel like in our conversations with him that this is a guy that we can help in this clubhouse and fit. And it's a different perspective that way. But I honestly believe that if he's ineligible for the postseason, the Astros don't make this deal because they don't benefit.
Yeah.
Why would you do it?
Yeah.
So they've got a guy now that they know can be the last out in the ninth inning of the World Series. They can get it from this guy. And so, again, it brings us back full circle what I said. This is a testing case that I think will be discussed, and because of this, things are going to get changed a lot, I think.
All right, before I let you go, if Bryce Harper is not traded today, it's because why?
The Nationals just didn't have the nerve to do it. Man, it's tough to trade a franchise player. For Rizzo to have to deal this guy today, it's killing him to have to be in this conversation. And I don't know if as an organization they want the blowback that's going to come their way. And that would be the reason that they don't do this deal.
HR, good to talk to you. Tell the boys we said hello. The trade deadline coverage today and a special MLB Tonight edition beginning at 1 o'clock Eastern. Good luck today. Thanks, HR.
All right, buddy. Thank you. Look forward to seeing you. We got to grab lunch soon, all right?
I'd love to. Thank you. That's Harold Reynolds. We can talk A-Rod and J-Lo, since HR is in the inner circle with A-Rod and J-Lo. It always drives Harold crazy when I bring up A-Rod and J-Lo. Are they getting married? Are you going?
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Dan Patrick Show app.